Hello everyone, welcome to my channel Visual Impression. On today's episode, we are going to discuss about the depth of field. What is depth of field? While capturing any subject like wildlife or bird or any portrait, you like to have some good amount of background blur or bokeh behind your subject, right? So that is called depth of field. More the depth of field, better the image. That's what we think. And to capture with greater depth of field, we use a lens having the larger aperture. Like f1.4 or f1.8 lens can give you better depth of field in comparison to f11 or f12. And that is not the only factor affecting depth of field. There are different parameters, different factors we can consider. On today's episode, we will discuss about top 5 parameters which affect depth of field. We will use a toy as the subject and we will use those 5 parameters to give you a brief example or brief idea about how these 5 parameters are very much helpful while capturing any kind of subject to get better depth of field. So without wasting any time, let's get started and watch till the end of the video to see all the parameters which are affecting depth of field. So let's get started. So friends, today what we will do, we will capture some images with all the aspects I will sharing now, with taking the bird as this toy, because a real bird we cannot place for a longer time to capture it with different various parameters what we are going to discuss today. So the first parameter is the lens. The lens, if you are using very small lens like 1855 or 35mm or 50mm lens, then you may not get that amount of blur if you are capturing a distant subject like birds or other animals. But if you are using portrait, means capturing any subject or any people, then 35mm, 50mm, 85mm, 1.8, those are good lenses because it has very wide aperture. But for longer distance subject like birds and wild animals, you may need a bigger lens like 200, 500 or 500mm or 400mm or 800mm. There are lots of bigger lenses. So the longer the lens mm size, the better the bokeh, the background, you will get very shallow depth of field. And the second thing is if you are using aperture. So if aperture is very wide, means you are using 1.8 or 1.4, you can get very good amount of bokeh. At the same time, if you are using f10, f12 or f22, then you can get very wide depth of field, means you can get very much of detailed of your background. Okay, and the third thing you can see that if the subject, means for example this bird, pardon me, due to heavy wind this bird is going falling again and again. I will adjust that. All right, if you consider the subject, here it is placed and the background is very near to the bird, very near to the subject, then whatever lens you are using, you will get very less depth of field, means very less bokeh on your image. And if the background is very far away and the bird is sitting at some place where the distance between the bird and the background is very high, then you can get very shallow depth of field. And the fourth point is the subject and the photographer's distance. If the photographer is very near to the subject, then you can get very good amount of depth of field. And if the photographer is very far from the subject, then obviously the depth of field will decrease. So this is the fourth point. And the fifth point will be the angle, from which angle you are capturing the subject, right? Means if the subject is placed here and you are capturing standing up and with a 45 degree angle or a 60 degree angle from the top towards bottom, then the field will be the background and it will be very near to the subject, then you will get very high amount of chance to get the background as in focus, and you will get everything in focus as well. But if you are at the eye level of the bird, for example this bird is sitting there and you are lying down on the ground and you are capturing the subject, then you will get the background as that far behind the trees and all. So then you will get a very good amount of bokeh, right? So these are the 5 factors affecting the depth of field. So we will discuss about one by one in detail, and I will capture images as per the requirement, and I will show you how the depth of field matters with this kind of parameters what we are using. So obviously stay tuned until the end of the video, and we will see what are the results of these 5 parameters. Okay, so let's see how camera's lens size matters. For example, right now I'm using 200-500 mounted on my D500. So now it is on 200 mm, and we will capture that bird using 200 mm focal length, and we will see how the subject comes. And after that I will show you the 500 mm version of the image, and you will see the difference between the background blur. For now I am capturing this subject with 200 mm focal length. You see, this is the background, and let's capture with the 500 mm. I zoomed it fully, and now we are capturing the 500 mm lens. Okay, so see the difference between 200 mm and 500 mm exactly. So this is the point where the mm factor matters, and more the mm increase, and you will get closer to the subject, and the background will be more blurred. And this is the first point. What is the second point? The lens aperture. Now I will capture this image with 5.6 aperture, which is the most probable aperture, minimum aperture of this lens, and we will see how the image comes. I am capturing with around 400 mm, and here is the image, you see. And let's increase the aperture, and we'll see around f14, f13 or f14, from approximately f13 I am capturing. So let's see how the image comes now. Okay, see the difference. This is the image with f5.6, and this is the image with f13. See the background, this is very creamy, completely blurred, but the image next to it having f13, the image has the background with little bit of details. Third point is the distance between background and the subject. So now what I will do is I will place that entire thing, the wood and the bird, nearer to the forest, nearer to the backside. So let's see how the image looks with the background nearer to this object. I have kept the aperture around f6.3. So see, this is the subject with the background. You can see lots of leaves and other things are there on the background. And now what we will do, we will move the background, move the subject very far from the background, and we will see what is the result. So I will capture the same image with the background is very far away. Earlier the background was closer to the bird, and now the background is very far from the bird. And let's see what is the result. Now I have taken same f6.3, and now I am taking 300 mm focal length, and let's capture the image. Okay, so this is the difference. If you see the previous image, the leaves and all are visible, but now everything is completely blurred, very creamy. So you see, this is the difference between choosing the subject and the composition, right? If you are standing somewhere, the bird is sitting somewhere, and if you see the subject is very far away from the background, then you may get a chance to get very great images. If the subject is very nearer to the background, you may need to look some different composition, means you can change your angle and you can change your position, so that you can get the bird with a very good amount of background distance, so that you can capture the image very clearly. The fifth point is the distance between subject and the photographer. If the photographer is sitting very near to the subject, of course birds are very shy and they will not allow you to go very close distance to them. Still, if the distance is very far, means too far from the subject, again you will get a lot of detail of the background. but if we are sitting very little bit nearer to this subject, you will get more blur. For example, the images what I am showing now little bit closer to the subject, because the bird is not real here, so I can sit safely nearer to the toy, and approximately 3.5 meter distance I have from the bird, and this background is very crisp, very blurred. But now if I change my position very far from the subject, let's see, I am moving little bit farther. For example, I'm sitting here now little bit farther from the background. Now let's see the same image I will capture. See the difference. This image has very shallow depth of field, and this image has very high depth of field. So this is the difference between distance as well. Last and the most important point is, if you are capturing the subject like this from the, if you are standing and bird is very low angle from you, and you are capturing the image, suppose I am capturing this image like here. See, this is the image. What is happening, due to the background is very nearer to the subject. Now the ground is the background, right? The bird is sitting and the background is the ground, and you are capturing from this angle. So the nearer to the background to the subject, the less amount of blur you will get. The same image, if I capture from the very bird's eye level like this, if I'm capturing the subject, you can see the difference. What I'm trying to explain is, if the subject is sitting and the background is very far away, and you position yourself to the bird's eye level, you will get more details of the subject and the background will be blurred. But if you are standing somewhere and bird is there and the background is the ground or the water surface, then obviously you will get very less amount of depth of field. So these are the 5 important points you need to consider while capturing any birds or any wild animal. And to get maximum amount of bokeh, you need to play around with these points. Not only the f number, or not only the camera's big lens. So everything matters. You need to take minority actions and decisions while capturing birds in standing or sitting position. Okay. So I hope these points are very valuable for you. You learned a lot from this episode, and if you have any suggestion, if you have any thoughts, then please do share, and please let me know if you like this video, and please subscribe my channel if you have not subscribed yet, and stay tuned for the upcoming episodes. Thank you for watching.